Fire Breather is an American comic created in 2003 and is criminally slept on. Despite having a 4-issue long crossover with Invincible, he isn't even referenced once, and no one's even entertained the idea of a movie or a show in like 15 years. All these companies are constantly trying to suck your nostalgia juices dry, but they can't touch this one. Everything from bonding over their mutual daddy issues to an alternate future timeline where Duncan murders one of his teammates. In this short miniseries crossover between 4 Image comics, there's a good amount of shit they could have used as material, and they didn't. So I will. You know the drill. Stop watching in landscape mode, put your phone in full screen, and lock in. So we start issue 1 in a dark, dank-ass cave, and Barnes is telling Bullock that Duncan just didn't want to show up to his regular custody weekend. Of course, with this giant mythical beast in front of his face, Barnes tries to reason with him, but you can't reason with crash outs, or literal animals, for all intents and purposes. And he storms out of the cave as Barnes calls for reinforcements. We cut over to Duncan, and he's arguing with his mother about his right to not go to see his father. And that conversation just ends with him slamming a door. But then you remember this whole little 4-chapter comic series was supposed to be about a team. So we're shown Zephyr. And I have no idea if I'm fucking pronouncing that right. She's just in a room talking to 2 guys until her mom comes, to which he promptly calls her a bitch and flies off. Now, I don't like her, but you'll come to really see why eventually. I hope. They just keep putting her parental issues in the same league as Mark and Duncan's, even though hers hasn't tried to take over the entire planet or beat their child to death. And then you have Shadowhawk, who has a relatively good relationship with his father, having him build his weapons that he uses for vigilante work. So they're trying to hit us with the whole team in this little spread here. Next up being Invincible, who is bantering with Adam Eve about how he's met Fire Breather and his dad before. While all this is happening, a group of bullies pull up on Duncan during a walk and tells him that his dad is on another one of his massive rampages. So Duncan, at first believing that they're lying in order to bully him, he tells them to
get the fuck away from me.
But the bullies insist and turn up the radio with the news on it, confirming their claims from earlier. But Duncan burns their fucking tires anyway and heads over to calm his father down. He gets to Bullock and just tells him straight up that this shit is getting old and it needs to stop. But before they can really continue with the conversation, Mark hits Bullock with a flying right hook, quickly followed by Shadowhawk randomly appearing. They show us Zephyr and take the time to show us how she ends up at the battle, but it's really to just piss her mom off, and she thinks Invincible and Duncan are attractive. But all of these children being sent to battle the king of monsters really sets Bullock off. So he hits Shadowhawk with some yoga fire before bitch slapping him into next week, and then grips up Zephyr before she can even do shit. Duncan yells for the other 3 to stop. He convinces Bullock to prematurely end his rampage, and promptly yells at the 3 for trying to save him from his father. This whole ordeal attracting a crowd of civilians, Mark suggests they have this conversation elsewhere, where at some point Shadowhawk throws out the idea of forming some type of team, and everybody's apprehensive. Nobody really agrees for whatever which reason, until Shadowhawk makes it way more non-committal, says it's just like a group where we hang, you know, sometimes do heroic stuff. It's kind of a real copium from Shadowhawk, but they all agree, fly away, and Shadowhawk is left realizing that he didn't get any of their contact information, bringing us to issue 2, and Mark is remarkably wet as he brings a pizza through a portal on their private moon base. It happens to be the vacation home of the Noble family, built by Zephyr's father himself, which again, it really makes me annoyed that they keep trying to compare her daddy issues to Invincible or Duncan's, but the writers 100% know this, because she starts complaining about her parents, and Mark asks if her dad ever put her in a coma.
I said, shut the hell up! Damn!
Shadowhawk is just in the corner doing his best Batman impression when they see a completely non-plot contrived meteor on a collision course for Earth. So, being the only team member with godlike abilities, Mark rushes over to try to Peter Parker train scene the situation. He figures he can't stop or destroy it, so he opts to just redirect it to a less populated area. Letting it down easy in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, the asteroid breaks up into a bunch of golems. All of this is happening while the rest of the team back at the moon base are bickering about what the fuck they should do. They agree they should just head down there, and they use these blue door portals to help Mark fight off the rock goblins. But Shadowhawk is fucking useless, and Zephyr is... I don't even know what her power is, honestly. So Duncan and Mark are the only ones really doing anything. There's this part where Duncan sees that Mark is getting overwhelmed by the rock goblins, says he has an idea, and just flies higher than they can reach. They both take like a good second to appreciate how impressive and obvious that idea was, until it turns into an Avengers level threat. Back at the moon base, somehow, I don't exactly know how we got here, Zephyr and Shadowhawk are scrapping with these stone monsters when Zephyr throws one of the goons a little too hard and breaks the glass on the moon base, ejecting Shadowhawk into the cold vastness of outer space without a suit, and miraculously is alive. They don't really explain how the suit keeps him alive, just that it does. And something interesting that I learned from this panel that I didn't know about Shadowhawk because I've never even heard of his franchise, is that apparently all the users, all the past mantle holders of the Shadowhawk persona are speaking in his head at once. So it's kind of like a constant avatar state, or if like Deku could always talk to the past users of One For All. But from the outside looking in and not really understanding his lore, it kind of just seems like bro has schizophrenia. Anyway, while he's alive, purely because the suit is protecting him, he can still run out of air. So he calls the spirit of a past Shadowhawk to give him some advice, and lowering his heart rate to the point where he just consumes less oxygen, giving him more time to be saved. Mark ends up destroying one of the golem's fingers trying to escape his grasp, which gives him an idea on how to kill this thing. He grabs one wrist from the stone creature and tells Duncan to grab the other side, before tearing the monster directly in half and throwing it right back into space where it came from, without any explanation of what it was, who sent it, what it wanted. And the chapter ends in this really sweet vibe where they're trying to build this like sidekick little banter relationship between Duncan and Mark, which when I realized that they never even try to reference him in the show, it incites a ball scrunching level of anger. Also, like and subscribe. Why haven't you done that? But there's a side note that I want to get to that I haven't. The fucking art. The series seems to be done over a number of years by various different artists, and their styles are so inconsistent. They're often clashing, and most are kinda ugly. I don't have an overall point with that, I just wanted to let that be known. But there is specifically one issue with gorgeous stylized art that, you know, of course is the last one, but I really fuck with the art in issue 3 actually. While my nigga Duncan is done dirty in this comic still, it's definitely not whatever the last two were. And they tell you this with insanely high stakes for no reason. Let me explain. They somehow completely retcon the origins of the Pact, even though that it was just 2 chapters ago, now telling us that Petra is the founder of the Pact. She's described to have precognitive abilities and is made of pure leadership material. In this new retcon, she forms the gang in order to repel this alien war race who wants to take over the world. And the first panel of any action has them disrespecting my goat off rip. But while the 2 strongest members on the team get tossed around like fucking ragdolls, bro starts to slowly reveal his plot, like he's slapping the shit out of Shadowhawk while bragging about his armor being made from butchered demigods. He got these niggas fearing for their life while he's rocking god leather like it's Louis Vuitton. So after dispatching everybody else, he gets to Petra. And this is when this nigga starts to say the most foul and heinous shit possible. When Petra plainly asks him why he's even here and what he wants, he just goes, honestly, I'm just kinda hungry as fuck, for real. And he tells her, I know you could see the future, but your future fairies must have not told you the truth about me. Because if you did, you would have slit your wrist in a tub this morning rather than to come face me. And if that's not the most vile shit to say to a 16-year-old possible, I don't know what is. Please don't prove me wrong in the comments. They scuffle for a little bit, but Petra really isn't putting in any pain and sees at some point that the only option is to teleport her team out. So she yells for the team to regroup on her for a teleport, and Shadowhawk, being a dumb dickhead, doesn't listen immediately, causing Zephyr to try to obliviously go pick him up, and the ultimate reason she becomes a human shish kebab. Shadowhawk tries to make a run back, but it's basically just a suicide attempt, so Mark pulls him out before he can make a real move. An alien guy just gets bored, I guess, and leaves.
2 hours later.
Shadowhawk and Mark each individually blame themselves for Zephyr's death in their own way. But when Petra gets a moment alone, she's met with this masked figure who reveals herself to be Petra from the future, from a timeline where the alien guy kind of just wreaked havoc over the entire planet, and she dedicated her life to building a time machine to stop him. She takes present day Petra into the future to show her the horrors of superpowered people getting their juices milked, or Shadowhawk ending up a fentanyl addict. Future Shadowhawk still thinks he has one more plan to end the suffering caused by the Reaver, and future Petra agrees, saying she has nothing else to really live for. When they get to whatever service tower they were going to sabotage or something, they run into evil Duncan, who is thick-necked and horribly deformed. Also has completely switched to the Reaver side, blowing a hole directly through future Shadowhawk's chest, turning him into 2 future Shadowhawks. Petra being shaken up by her friend killing her other friend, she tries to get Duncan back on her side somehow, and he just goes, nah, we beat the fuck out of Mark while he was at it too. So Petra figures the only way to stop this from happening is to go back and sacrifice herself to make sure it never does. And like all the other endings from this little mini-series, we get a couple pages of Duncan and Mark just bonding. Also, Petra didn't only sacrifice herself, but she erased her existence, so she no longer actually exists and nobody remembers her. Cool. Now my favorite of the entire lineup by far, Chapter 4. The issue starts off with him getting called to the principal's office, where he's presented with a US agent telling him he'll get straight down to the point. He asks Duncan to take care of some lava monsters as a favor for the US government, and Duncan tells him he'll think about it. Later that day, we're shown Duncan laying on the floor of his room on the phone with Barnes. He tells Barnes that he really just wants a regular life and doesn't really want the publicity of being a superhero. But Barnes replies back that the best way to get them off your ass is to do what they want. And he says, I quote, word for word, bar for bar, if you're worried about screwing things up, call your little superhero friends, you know, the Chrome guy from New York, Invincible, and that slut from the Nobles. Duncan thanks him for the idea to bring his team, which he didn't think of. So they all link up near this entrance to a cave where the lava monster sightings have been happening. They investigate deeper in the cave while discussing daddy issues as always, when it gets a little too dark, prompting Mark to ask for a light, and Firebreather lets out some fire to reveal they're surrounded by lava monsters. Now, unlike the other times, they actually take these niggas out easily, not even a challenge. They're getting tossed around like Charmcaster made these bitches. After beating a couple waves of goons, they find out that Dr. Seismic himself is the one sending these monsters, and he actually thanks Mark for stranding him in the middle of the earth because now he has minions to order around to do whatever he wants. Brags about it for a little bit before getting punched in the mouth. The book's actually really cool because they have these little like word puzzles and spot the difference games in the back. There's this little smoking PSA at the end where Zephyr is talking about smoking being cool, so Mark gets Angstrom to find a version of her that's only been smoking for 2 years and she looks like she's fucking decomposing. And yeah, that is all the content that's in the little 4-issue miniseries that is the Pact. Hopefully this actually gets you to read fucking Firebreather. Hopefully, and maybe spark some type of discussion on a revival or reboot or something. But if you got to the end of the video, please like and subscribe. It helps the channel a lot. And let me know if you want another comic video